Now, today I'm going to look at Hammers Slammers from Mayfair Games in 1984, based on the classic novel by David Drake from right around that same time period. It's a tactical armored combat, command the toughest mercenaries in the galaxy. The cover seems to be the same or similar to the actual cover on the book, so obviously it's directly tied into that. It's nice. It's works well. It's a little bit different size than a regular bookshelf game, but you can put it on a bookshelf. It's a little bit thinner and maybe a bit wider. A little more theming back there. Showing you a bit about one feature of it is, I think they call it a geomorphic board where the sections connect in different combinations. That's what it's showing there. Developed by Jim Griffin from a design submitted by H.N. Voss of Timeline. And the game includes plenty of theme. In fact, several of the pages of the rulebook are parts of the actual book. Goes on, talks quite a bit about Hoover tanks, power guns. All over the galaxy, men with the best gifts of science and no skills but those of murder looked for patrons who would hire them to bring down civilization. Business was good. The tank's fire control, its precisely metered lift fans, the huge iridium casting that formed its turret, all were constructs of the highest sophistication. In all the human galaxy, there were probably no more than a dozen worlds capable of manufacturing war tools as perfect as the panzers of Hammer's tank companies. But Hammer paid for the best, man and tank alike, and out of them he forged the cutting edge of a weapon no enemy seemed able to stop. The rulebook is 16 pages, black and white, kind of big text, and several of those pages are the background theme. Just wrote the rules there. And then there's some handy charts, so obviously terrain movement effects, descriptors of the different elements on the board here. Terrain modifiers, description of counters, combat results table, gas attack results table, turn record chart, sequence of play. And it's got a lot of unique scenarios, and you can also build your own scenarios, which is really nice. And they show setup, attacker, defender, morale, victory conditions, game length. So Badger Hunt, the vital offensive to the north is about to begin. The critical observation points on board 3, shown here, must be taken without delay before Greens long-range artillery can move into range and have a field day. So again, the board is in different sections, and this shows the different parts you put together. City Too Far, 2 players. So it started long before the Slammers were called in. It had been a sleepy little war, the kind that was better at keeping the government in power than winning battles. Then some hotshot general wanted to use all of his shiny new paratroopers. A week later, the city was in ruins, and everyone started aiming for real. Hangman, we in the Phoenix Marriott's mercenaries are sympathetic towards rebels by nature. If we like governments, we'd still be with some planetary force. Last gasps, 2 players. Sometimes if you eliminate part of a problem, the rest goes away by itself. All we have to do is hurry in and clean up the infantry left behind and just sit here between them and their supplies. Slammers, 2 to 3 players. My suspicions were confirmed when I realized there wasn't a planetary unit in sight, just slammers. So it's got a solitaire scenario as well, which is nice. Snipers. Appears, gentlemen, we finished. About all we do now is that we only have a few hours to get them all. Mass Assault, 2 players. The final battle of a war always seems to be bloodiest. 2-player breakout. The order came through to find a weak spot and break out to the north. We had been actively obeying the order for about 20 minutes when it was received. Better part of valor, 2 players. If the battle needs fighting, my company will slug it out with the best. If the men and tanks are being wasted, well, let's just cause strategic withdrawal. Scenario 10, 2 players, so a lot of 2-player scenarios. Holding out to payday. The colonel is never one to like losing by default. It looks bad and feels lousy. Be nice, he added casually. if we could hold on until payday. Then traditional objectives, scenario 11. A real traditional objective, but it's hard to be nostalgic during close assault. Religious war, 2 players again. Must be peacekeepers in religious war. There's no question we can keep the 2 sides apart once we get there. Unfortunately, right now there is only a small advanced party of mixed mercenary forces watching the bigger faction. Everyone's piece of the action. Hammer Slammers is probably the galaxy's most impressive bill collector, but even we may not be enough to repossess an entire continent, particularly when we aren't the only mercenaries trying to collect. It's a 3-player scenario. Spice Madness, 4 players. Morning will begin searching, but the intelligence boys must be right. Why else would there be at least 1 other mercenary force? And the cream of 2 planets armies camped within a few clicks of here. And then here's quite a mix of counters. A lot of counters. The box is too thin to have a counter tray, unfortunately, but a lot of counters there. 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. Also comes with some pretty nice dice. They seem a little bit heavier than normal dice. They're good. As far as the unique units, fortunately on their players, they have a neat, really handy reference here that shows the individual units. I'll just place them there, see what we have. For each of the combat units, there's a attack factor, range, defense factor, and movement factor. Across here, of course, turn marker. Here's the fortress defense strength, and then just markers for different kinds of rubble. It's 4 different colors. There's the Hammer Slammers, or the blue. They have Hoover tanks, combat cars, dismounted infantry, mounted infantry, and self-propelled infantry. And the dismounted and mounted are in front and back, so you can flip them over. All units are on hover vehicles except for the dismounted infantry. So then there's the mercenary units, which are red, and all units are hover vehicles except for dismounted infantry again, large guns, small guns, and howitzers. Hover tanks, combat cars, dismounted infantry, mounted infantry, front and back. Large gun, small gun, howitzer, self-propelled artillery, self-propelled calliope. And then they have green and beige units for the conventional units. But they're the same, types. All units are tractor-wheeled vehicles except for infantry, large guns, small guns, howitzers, and calliopes. So they don't have Hoover, but these guys do. Track tanks, armored cars, infantry, armored personnel carrier, large guns, small gun, howitzer, self-propelled artillery, calliope, self-propelled artillery. That's the individual units. Then the board, of course, is very nice. It doesn't fold. It comes in these sections that connect to each other, and depending on the scenario, they go in different, combinations. This is all of them together for one of the scenarios. But that's very well done. It's like a thick cardboard. But as far as the train features, there's city hexes, slope hexes, hilltop hexes, swamp, clear, road. These are board numbers. And compass. So lake hexes, river hexes, bridges, and forest. And like a lot of games, it has different combat effects and movement effects for each. And the direct fire modifiers and indirect fire modifiers are shown here. For movement, for the different types of train, then you also have the amount of movement factor to move into, and it differs for conventional units versus Hoover units. So, very well done. We'll get into the rules. Going through the rules, some discussion of the organization of the regiment. I suppose this might come in useful for different scenarios. Headquarters battalion, except for artillery and replacement, all support elements were grouped for administrative convenience in HQ battalion. Headquarters company, Colonel Hammer and his personal staff, and total 153 effectives. Maintenance, capable of handling anything short of full hull rebuilds. Total 212 effectives. Communications included not only the staff of Command Central, but the staffs of local headquarters with their responsibilities. Total 143 effectives. Medical, 24 first-line medics, Medicorps, in a field hospital. Total 60 effectives. Supply included mess and quartermaster functions. Total 143 effectives. Intelligence, order of battle was performed mostly by computer. Total 84 effectives. Transport, 312 men, and 288 air cushion trucks for local unit supply. Combat engineers carried out bridging, clearing, etc. Total 50 effectives. Combat cars, 8 combat car companies, each of a command section, and 4 line platoons. Each platoon contained command car and 5 combat cars, or 6 combat cars. Company total 100 effectives. Tanks, 4 tank companies, each of a command tank and 4 line platoons. Each line platoon contained 4 tanks. Total 36 effectives. Infantry, 4 companies, each 4 platoons. Each platoon contained 4 10-man line squads, 2 2-man tri-barrel teams, 1 2-man 100mm mortar team, command element. All but heavy weapons were on 1-man skimmers. Buzz bombs could be used for special purposes. But in general support from the armored vehicles allowed these slammers to travel lighter than most. Company total 202 effectives. Artillery, 3 batteries of self-propelled 200mm rocket howitzers. Each battery contained 6 tubes, 1 command car, and 2 munitions haulers. Battery total 37 effectives. Replacements, normally totaling 1,500 men. Known as personal weapons, line infantry were issued 2-centimeter shoulder power guns and grenades. Vehicle and heavy weapons crewmen carried 1-centimeter pistols. Officers carried pistols or 1-centimeter submachine guns as they desired. Sequence of play. Each player in his turn does the following: rally, moving player, paradrops and counter paradrops and counter paradrop fire, move, range combat, all players with indirect artillery and counter artillery fire, direct fire, close assaults, all players. Repeat steps 1 to 5 until all players have had their turn. That's the turn marker. The player who moved first always fires first in each of the combat sections. Order of fire is the same as movement sequence. Rally. Disrupted units may be undisrupted rally at the start of a player's turn. The morale level of each unit is listed in a specific scenario. To rally unit, roll 2 dice. If the number rolled is equal to or greater than the morale level of the disrupted unit, then that unit counter is immediately rallied, flipped over to its front side, and treated as an undisrupted unit. If the attempt to rally is unsuccessful, the unit counter remains disrupted. Each disrupted unit counter moving player, except those in close assault, may attempt to rally. Desperation rally. If your first attempt to rally unit fails, you may roll immediately for a desperation rally using the same procedure as a regular rally. Successful, treat the unit as a rallied unit. If you're unsuccessful, immediately remove that unit from play. Paradrops, only infantry, conventional, slammers, and mercenary, small guns, armored cars, and armored personnel unit counters may be paradropped. The player picks a hex as a drop zone, unoccupied by enemy units, to paradrop units. More than one drop zone may be designated beginning of movement for different units. Once the drop zone is designated, roll 1 die. Then rolls a 1, 2, 3. The drop unit is landed in the drop zone hex. 4, 5, 6 is landed off course. Look at the ones around it, and you go 1 to 6, roll dice. And after turning direction, roll another die. The number rolled is the number of hexes count out from the drop zone in the direction of the hex. If a unit drops off board, simply place on the first hex on the closest board edge. They're dropped off. Consider all off-board hexes as clear terrain. Any unit which lands in a lake, swamp, or river hex is eliminated. Armored cars, armored personnel carriers, and guns may only land in a clear terrain hex, otherwise they are eliminated. A unit may move its complete movement after landing unless it is eliminated by terrain or it lands in an enemy-occupied hex. If an off-course or dropped unit lands in an enemy-occupied hex, close assault with special modifications will occur during combat. The pair-dropped units does not get the usual close assault bonus for the first turn of close assault. Infantry, however, still doubles the attack vector. Overstacking may occur by pair-dropped units on the dropping zone hexes. If overstacking occurs at the first movement opportunity, the pair-dropped units must move enough units to relieve the overstack condition. Counter pair-drop fire. Clappies, I'm not sure how that's pronounced, but that's how I'll pronounce it. And Hoover tanks, mercenary slammer, may fire at pair-dropped units. During the movement turn, they are dropped and is still in the air. There's no extended range for clappies in tanks. Counter pair drop fire. Pair dropped units disrupted or eliminated by counter pair drop fire, eliminated, and are immediately moved from play. They may not return fire. The range of the counter pair drop fire is computed by counting the hexes from the firing unit to the hex that the pair drop unit lands in. Do not include the hex firing unit on, but count the when the landing unit is on. If the pair dropping unit is on course, that hex would be the drop hex zone. If the pair dropping unit is off course, that hex is determined by a die roll. Units conducting counter pair drop fire may not conduct other ranged combat or close assault attacks. Clappy automatically eliminates a pair dropped unit on a CPF attack. Slammer and mercenary Hoover tanks attack using the normal odds ratio direct fire. The tanks compare their attack vectors against a pair dropped unit. However, only one unit may fire at one pair dropping unit. During counter pair drop fire, ignore all rollable results. Units which fired CPF, counter pair drop fire, may not fire again at close assault pair drop troops. Movement during the movement portion of a turn, the player may move any or none up to each of his units up to its movement factor. It's from hex to adjacent hex. Then expand the movement factors. Conventional troops are equipped with tractor wheeled vehicles. Mercenaries and slammers are Hoover equipped troops. Dismounted slammer and mercenary infantry are armed like conventional troops. However, when mounted in their skimmers, they are treated as Hoover equipped troops. Movement factors may not be saved or transferred. Hex may not be entered as moving counter has insufficient movement factors left to enter that hex. However, unit may always move one hex, except those units with a 0 movement printed on counters, which cannot move except when towed. Conventional armor and mechanized units may never move into swamp or lake hexes. However, Hoover units may move into swamp and lake hexes, but are eliminated if disrupted while on them. Conventional non-Hoover units and Hoover units may move onto river hexes and cross rivers, but if they are disrupted while on a river hex, they are eliminated. A counter may move into a hex which contains an opponent's counter, but the unit must immediately stop upon entering that hex and cannot move out while an opponent's counter, whether disrupted or undisrupted, remains in that hex. If a counter is on the road and moves into a hex containing a road, the unit must expend the cost of the hex terrain type, not a road movement cost. Unit may only use road movement cost if it has entered the road hex from another road hex. Units may move through hexes containing other friendly units. Players can each stack up to 3 counters in a single hex. During close assault, it's possible to have 6 counters in a hex, 3 from each side, or even 9 if it's 3 players. Towing any vehicle can tow artillery, except skimmers. The player must announce at the start of the turn that he is towing, and the towing unit must start the turn. The same hex as the unit to be towed. Place artillery piece underneath the towing vehicle, shows being towed. Movement of the towing vehicle is halved, running fractions down. Artillery may not fire while being towed. Towed unit suffers the same combat result as its towing unit. Fire is conducted only on the towing unit. Do not add DF for the towed unit. Towed units cannot be hooked up or set up if towing unit is disrupted. Rule 1, rally for both towed and towing unit combined. A player may, at the start of the movement turn, declare a towed artillery piece is being set up. The vehicle that had been doing the artillery unit may then move normally. The artillery piece remains a hex in which it began turn. It can fire normally. In artillery is guns, howitzers, and calliopes. Mounted infantry. An APC armored personnel carrier must start in the hex with a regular infantry unit or the infantry to mount the APC. One APC counter may carry one infantry counter. Mounting or dismounting from an APC costs both the infantry unit and the vehicle one movement factor. Both APC and infantry may fire during the mounting dismounting turn. To show infantry is dismounted, place the infantry unit on top of APC. Disrupted APCs may not mount or dismount infantry. Infantry fires as a disrupted unit if the carrying APC is disrupted. If a disrupted APC is disrupted on any successive turns, then both, if any, infantry unit carries are eliminated. Stacking is limited to 3 counters and hex. Infantry may not ride tanks. An APC carrying an infantry unit costs us 2 units for stacking purposes. Slammer and mercenary infantry may not ride in conventional APC. If an APC carrying infantry is eliminated, the infantry counter is eliminated. It costs mercenaries and slammer infantry 1 MF each for its infantry movement and its skimmer movement to mount or dismount the skimmer. 1 movement factor is taken from the infantry movement and 1 MF is from the skimmer movement. To show that mercenary infantry is mounted, simply flip the infantry unit counter over to the skimmer side and use the values printed, etc. Mercenary slammers infantry, when mounted on skimmers, are eliminated when disrupted. Range combat. There are 2 types of range combat, indirect and direct. All combat units are rolled using 2 6-sided die. Fire is simultaneous, but the moving player connects to fire first. There's also close assault combat, which in range combat, a unit may attack a target within the range printed in the firing counter. A firing unit may not split its attack vector by conducting more than one attack. All counters have extended range capability. This may not be used for counter artillery or counter pair drop fire. In extended range combat, a unit may fire half its attack vector at a target up to twice the unit's printed range. To conduct range combat, a unit must not be in close assault, must not be disrupted, must have the target in range, and must have a line of sight to the target. Or in the case of artillery firing indirectly, either line of sight to an observer with line of sight or line of sight. Any friendly unit may serve as an observer for indirect fire. Every unit may only conduct 1 attack in a player's turn, whether close assault, direct fire, counter artillery, counter paratroop, or indirect fire. All players combat, whether direct fire, indirect, close assault, or counter artillery fire, is simultaneous. Unit destroyed indirect fire may still fire during the direct fire round before being removed from play at the end of the combat round. The only exception are paratroops destroyed in the air by counter pair drop fire. They are immediately removed from play and do not fire in the combat round. Counter artillery fire. Calliopes and hover tanks may conduct counter artillery fire. This fire is used to knock incoming indirect artillery shells out of the air. CF can only be used right before indirect fire and only against artillery shells fired indirectly. One counter artillery fire attack automatically destroys incoming artillery shells and cancels the attack of 1 artillery counter per turn. To conduct counter artillery fire, the Calliopes or hover tanks must be within their listed range of target hex and have line of sight to the target hex. It also may conduct a counter artillery fire for itself if it is the target of an indirect artillery attack. A single unit CAF is only good against the artillery attack of 1 artillery counter. If only 1 unit conducts CAF and 2 counters are conducting an artillery attack, then CAF may negate only 1 of the artillery counters' attack. CF player's choice. The other artillery attack must be rolled. CAF may only be conducted at range printed on the counters. There is no extended range CAF. Counter artillery fire by the defending player occurs after each announced artillery strike by the attacking player. Remember that each unit may conduct only one fire in any one player's turn. The collab piece have an S in place of a number on the attack vector to indicate the special attack, counter artillery fire, and counter pair-drop fire only. In all other attacks, the collab piece have an attack vector of 0. Indirect fire, only artillery can use indirect fire, which is conducted before direct fire. Any unit that uses indirect fire may not attack during direct fire. Artillery is divided into two types, howitzers and guns. Howitzers may only conduct indirect fire. Guns may conduct both direct and indirect fire. To use indirect fire, an artillery unit must either have a direct line of sight on target or have an observer, which has a direct line of sight upon the target. Artillery fires only at the hexes containing an opponent's units, not the individual units in the hex. The attack is conducted using the defense value of the hex, found using the terrain modifier chart and the indirect fire combat results table. To conduct indirect fire, compare the total attack vectors of the attacking units to the defense vector of the target hex, not the defense vector of the defending units. The comparison expresses the ratio of the total defending factors. The odds are rounded down. The combat results table is divided into two sections, one for Class A units, one for Class B. Class A targets are tanks, armored cars, combat cars, and fortresses. Class B targets are all the targets. If an attack occurs at greater than 5-1 odds when attacking Class B targets, roll the attack on the 5-1 CRT. If an attack occurs at greater than 5-1 odds when attacking Class A, roll the attack on the 6-1 column. Attacks of less than 1 to 2 may not be conducted. If Class A and B units are set together in a hex, the same die roll is used for both targets. They're not the same odds column. All units of the same class in target hex are affected equally by the results of the indirect fire. Exception gas attacks are conducted separately on each unit in the hex. A player may use indirect fire against a hex under attack by close assault. His own units in the same hex. However, all units in target hex are affected. Remember, any unit which conducts an indirect fire may not conduct direct fire on the player's turn against either unit class. Gas attack, direct or indirect. Any artillery counter that is equipped with gas ammunition may conduct either gas or regular attack. Each individual counter conducting a gas attack, whose shells are not destroyed by counter artillery fire, must roll against each unit in the target hex. There are no combat odds involved. Rather, the artillery attack is rolled against each unit attacked in the target hex and the appropriate gas attack, depending on the combat results table. Mercenary, including slammers or conventional Class A or B. Ignore rollable results when conducting a gas attack. Direct fire. All unit counters except howitzers may conduct direct fire if they are not in Class A, in close assault, have line of sight target, have not conducted indirect fire, CRF or CPS, and are in range. Each unit counter may fire at only one target each combat round. A target is one or more unit counters in hex. A player may fire at some or all of the units stacked in hex. A player may make as many separate attacks as he has units which can fire on a target, or the units may combine their values in attack. The train modifier of the hex adds onto the defense vector of the target. Thus, if there are two units with a defense vector of 2 in a hex with defensive modifier of 2, the attacker draws direct to both units as one target. The defense value is 6. If an attacker fires direct at one of 2 counters in the hex, the defense value target is 4 in this example. A player may fire as many times upon a target as he has units capable of making an attack. Compare the total attack vectors of the attacking units to the total defense vectors of the defending units. In any terrain or fortress modifiers, the total defense vectors of the defending units. This comparison is expressed as a ratio of total attacking factors to total defending factors that's found in the combat results table. All fractions are rounded down in favor of the defender. If an attack occurs at greater than 5-1 odds, roll the attack on the 5-1 column. Attacks less than 1 of 4 may not be conducted. And here's the terrain modifier chart. Indirect fire uses the defense vector of the target next terrain on the defense vector of the units in target hex to complete odds ratio. Direct fire, the following modifiers are added to defense value of the unit, shown here. For Fortress only in both direct and indirect fire. Do not add in additional terrain bonuses. If rubbled, remove fortress and treat as a rubble hex. Close assault. A close assault occurs when units of two opposing players occupy the same hex. In close assault, all units of both sides must attack each other, no matter whose turn it is. Units on close assault may not conduct ranged combat. These attacks occur simultaneously. A player may attack one, some, or all the enemy units in the hex. During close assault, all participating disrupted units shift their attack one column to the right on the combat results table. In addition, the attack factor of all infantry, whether mounted or dismounted, doubles. Disrupted units fight without bonuses, but mounted conventional infantry does not disrupt and receives its bonuses even if its APC is disrupted. Mercenaries and slammers, infantry mounted on the skimmers is eliminated or disrupted. The moving player can move additional units to close assault up to the stacking limit of 3 units per player. Disrupted units in close assault cannot rally. If disrupted, undisrupted units of the same player conducting close assault combine the same hex, they may not combine their attacks, but must conduct separate close assault attacks. Mounted infantry cannot dismount from their carrying vehicle in close assault. Units cannot leave the hex under close assault until all opponent's units in that hex are eliminated. Units may not move through a hex where a close assault is occurring. All units in a close assault ignore terrain and rubble bonuses. However, defending units receive the fortress defense modifier to the first turn of a close assault. After the first turn, surviving attack units are considered to have entered the fortress, and neither the attacker or defender receive the fortress bonus during the successive rounds of close assault combat. Disruption. Any units disrupted during any player's turn is flipped over, and all attacks are over after all attacks have ended. Disrupted units may not fire unless close assaulted. Disrupted units can only move at half movement. A unit may receive only one disrupted result in a player's turn. Ignore additional disruptions during the same turn. If unit starts game, turn disrupted, and receives another disrupted result, it's eliminated. A unit that is disrupted and in close assault does not get any close assault combat bonus. Dismounted infantry ignores disruption results unless disrupted on river, swamp, or lake. Then they are automatically eliminated. Mercenaries and slammers, infantry and skimmers are eliminated when disrupted. Disrupted vehicles may not tow guns or howitzers. Any counter, including infantry, disrupted while in a swamp, river, or lake hex is automatically eliminated. Disrupted units may not move onto river or lake hexes. Disrupted units may not move into close assault. Rubble. A hex may be turned into rubble either as a result of direct fire, close assault, or indirect fire. On the combat results table, if a end result occurs because of direct fire, close assault combat, that's contained the target is reduced to rubble. Also, if a asterisk result or a R result occurs because of indirect fire, non-gassed, hex contained target is reduced to rubble. Whenever a hex is reduced to rubble, place a rubble counter on the hex. Immediately after all combat involving that hex is over, whether it was during direct fire, indirect fire, close assault. Hilltop, slope, clear, forest, road, and city hexes may be reduced to rubble. Place a rubble counter on these hexes when a rubble result occurs. When these hexes have rubble marker on them, add +1 to the movement cost to enter these hexes, and +2 to the direct fire and indirect fire terrain defense modifiers. Swamp, lake, and river hexes may never be reduced to rubble, and a rubble result has no effect on these hexes. Bridge hexes may be reduced to rubble. When a bridge hex is reduced to rubble, the bridge is destroyed, and the hex is after treated as a river. There can be no movement over or defense measures added to the hex set because of the bridge. When a fortress is reduced to rubble, remove the fortress counter and replace it with a rubble counter. Treat that hex as a rubble hex of its terrain type. Rubble has no effect on line of sight. Line of sight is the ability of a unit in one hex to see a unit in another hex. See measure a straight line. If the line passes over any terrain, including the black edge of a hex edge, then the line of sight may be blocked. Use only the dominant terrain in a hex to determine the terrain of the entire hex. There's always line of sight into adjacent hexes. Each hex is given a value depending on its terrain. The line of sight value varies depending on the hex containing the firing unit, target unit, and the intervening hex, shown here. Line of sight is not blocked if the values of the intervening hexes is equal to or less than the value of the hex of the firing unit, or the hex of the target. You find the intervening hexes is a higher value than both the hex of the target and the firing unit. The line of sight is blocked. Fortresses. Fortresses are a series of fortifications, not a single site. They have defense modifier of 12 added to each unit stacked in the fortress. Do not add in terrain defense modifiers for fortresses or for units of fortresses. Units in a fortress are placed underneath the fortress counter. Units in the same hex as a fortress, but not in the fortress itself, are placed on top of the fortress counter. Only one fortress may be placed in a hex. 3 units may be stacked in a fortress. Units may be attacked individually in fortresses. Fortresses may not be placed in city, swamp, lake, or river hexes. Fortresses may only be eliminated by being reduced to rubble. Though units in the fortresses can be eliminated normally, unoccupied fortresses may be used by the troops of any player. Fortresses may be destroyed by the occupying units at the start of their movement. These units must move out of the hex and not re-enter it that turn. No units of that player may enter that hex that turn. Electronic Countermeasures, ECM. While most mercenary and slammer units were equipped with essentially tamper-proof communications, the vast majority of local defense forces were equipped with less expensive and more easily jammed radios. In Hammer Slammers, a player may, in designated scenarios, use ECM against his opponent's conventional forces. Only Hoover tanks have ECM capacity. Each tank may jam one unit. After the attacking player announces attacks, a defending player can decide which of his units are jamming and which enemy units are being jammed. Range is line of sight of the Hoover tank. Only conventional forces are affected by ECM. Jammed units may not combine their attack in other units. Jammed units move normally. Artillery units may not use indirect fire attacks if the unit is observing for it is jammed. ECM is automatically effective. Then you design scenarios. Usually the attacker has a tougher job than defender. They should have an additional 20% in the number of points to compensate for this. So these are the various point values, and you can set them up as you wish and figure out who gets what. Paratroop cost +2 for each troop dropped. Then rally costs, add points to each individual unit that the rally value is lowered below 9. All units in the same color group must have the same morale, so it's kind of neat. You can design your own scenarios. And then we'll get to set up and play here. So to set up and play, I'm going to be doing this scenario, everybody wants a piece of the action. So there's three players, Tan for conventional forces, and then the Hammer Slammers and also mercenary units. First of all, I want to do this scenario because it uses all the board sections, so I thought that was kind of nice. Tactor setup. In board 1, armored cars, armored personnel carriers, infantry, small arms. And those all go in board 1, which is over here. Set those up there. Kind of distribute them around. Board 2 has some infantry and armored cars. There. Board 3, again, infantry and armored cars. Over here. Board 4, truck tanks, armored cars, infantry, armored personnel carriers, and a large gun. So 4 is over here. Kind of them getting distributed around there. Board 5, infantry and armored personnel carriers. Then distributed across the board, track tanks, armored cars, and a small gun. So I distribute them around here. The attacker, the brown, the mercenaries red, and Hammer Slammers blue all have a morale of 8. For the mercenaries red, I randomly determined that they'd be entering this side of the board, and then the hammer slammers will be entering this side. So the red has Hoover tanks, combat cars, and infantry. Hammer slammers has Hoover tanks, combat cars, infantry, and semi-propelled artillery. The game goes 10 turns. Victory conditions. Winners play the largest number of victory points, which can only be received by occupying and garrisoning city hexes. Each city hex of a totally garrisoned city is worth 1 victory point. Each city hex must be garrisoned with at least 1 unit. A player must garrison every city hex in a city to count that given city as he owned. So they're going to be trying to control territory. And I'm going to do the turn marker. I'll be trying to work. Instead of putting a separate sheet, I'm just going to move it down the hexes here. It goes 10 turns and have some rubble markers here ready to go. Then we'll get into play. Starting out on turn 1 here. Mercenaries go first, followed by hammer slammers, and then the conventional troops. So I'm going to have the mercenaries paratroop in. And if there's Hoover tanks or Calliopes, they can do anti-paradrop or counter-paradrop fire. There's none over in this area though, so they're just going to drop in. I'll do that for all the infantry. Put them around here and then I'll see if they drop on the spot they're intended or not. Put some behind enemy lines here. Actually, I'll move them in a little bit because I don't want them going off the board. Again, this is their intended location. Go some up here too. There's a Calliope up here, but let's see. Their range is 12, so I can get to about here with the Calliope, so they'll stay beyond that. But they do want to actually, the range is up here, so they want to stay out of the range of these as well, so he'll actually drop back here a little bit, because their range is 2. So they want to stay beyond that. He's got a range of 8, but he's not, can't do an anti-Calliope or an anti-paradrop. All the others are range of 2. And now we'll go around and see if they landed where they intended. On a roll of 1 to 3, they land in a spot. If not, they go outside, and then we'll resolve that later. So we'll start with these first. Yes, he's good. No, he's not. I'll kind of move him up a little bit to show that he missed. He missed. A lot of them are missing. They're all missing, pretty much. He's good. Missed. Pure. He's good. He's good. So then we'll do the ones that missed. First we see which direction they go. One will be up here. So he's going off in this direction. Then we see how far. So some are going in range of weapons now. 2. This one. Okay. Then we'll see if any are in the range of a Calliope. Calliope's over here, so he's in the range of that, 11, and it's an automatic hit, so that Calliope fires and destroys this unit who drifted into his path. I'll indicate he's fired by just rotating him. So that's the end of the pair drop, and if any of them had landed in a lake, swamp, or river hex, they'd be eliminated, but none of them did. So, and they can still do their full movement after landing. And I'll do that. They get a movement of 2, and they have range of 2, so they'll, I guess these two will hold back a little bit. They don't want to get there until the weaponized unit, the tanks and armored cars get there. But he'll go 1 to get on the road, and then 1.5, 2. He's going to actually go into the city here. He's a little bit outnumbered there, so he's going to move down here. They'll kind of stay where they're at, and then I'll move in the units. So I'll have a mix of armored cars and Hoover tanks come up here. They'll have several that come to meet this group. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It costs 1 to cross clear terrain and 2 to cross a river. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is an armored car. You go 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's got a range of 4, so he's in range there. It's a Hoover tank. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll stop there. These will go up to start occupying the city. So he's got 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5. Occupying the city. I have to one, 2, 2.5, 3, 4, 4.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, 5. Start setting up shop there in that city. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what they'll set up. Then in combat, the sequence is range combat, all players, indirect artillery and counter-artillery fire, direct fire, and then close assaults. Indirect fire is for artillery and howitzers, and the mercenaries don't have those, so they'll look at their direct fire. And you normally look at their range, but they can also do extended fire where they go twice as far, but it's half as destructive. First of all, we got kind of these guys up by themselves here. And all the direct and indirect fire is simultaneous. So he'll go against these guys because he's in range. They're both on clear hexes. And you see if there's line of sight, and there is, because to the line of sight again, you compare the terrain, and if the intervening is higher than the firing or target, then you don't have line of sight for direct fire. But they're okay there. It's in the range of 2. As far as the modifiers, add to the defense value of the unit. They're both unclear, so there's 0 modifier there. He's got his attack of 2 versus a defense of 4. So he's got attack factor of 2. Defender has a defense of 4, and there's no modifier since it's on clear terrain. So it's a 2 to 4 or 1 to 2 ratio. This chart here. Direct fire. 5. No effect. And they're going to respond. They have an attack of 6. They'll actually each attack individually, so it's a 3 to 1 for each of them. And again, no terrain modifiers. 3 to 1. 9. Defender eliminated. So I'll put this rubble marker on there to indicate that he's been eliminated. So others, to indicate he's fired, I'll rotate him. Attackers, he could do extended, but he doesn't want to do that. So he's got, and then there's these 2 units. They're infantry, but he's got a armored car here. It's got a range of 4. He'll go against, there's actually a combat car going against an armored car. He's in clear also, so, and there's a line of sight, range of 4. Attack to defense is, so it's 4 to 2, so ratio of 2 to 1. 8 on 2 to 1. Disrupted. Flip them over, indicate he's disrupted. Then actually these 2, there's 2 infantry here. They have range of 2, but they're going to do an extended range. So they can go 4, but their power is halved. So instead of a total of 2 times 2 or 4, they have a total of 2. And they're going against a 2. So 1 to 1 ratio. 11. Defeated. So he'll be removed. They have a range of 4. So that's doing here, but these guys can still, they can still fire back too. They have a range of 2, and if they go extended, they can go 4. So these 2 can shoot at him, and so they'll combine for, well, he'll just go individually against him. So 4, 2 to 4, so it's a 1 to 2 ratio. 7. 1 to 2. No effect. Okay, he's fired. Then lastly, he'll fire against him. He's got a 6, 3, so 3 to 4. So 0.75 would be rounded to 1 to 2 in his favor. 7 and a 1 to 2. No effect. Save went. Then we'll go up here. He's sitting in the city here, and he wants to counter these incoming units. So they're sitting in the city. If you look at the line of sight, city has a value of 2, but since that's not in between them, but they're on it, they can reach it. He'll go against the defender. The modifier for being in the city for direct is to defense value, so they'll have a modifier of +6 since they're in the city. So that's good. So 8 to 2 is 4 to 1. 10. Defender DR, defender eliminated. X is reduced to rubble if the units are either attacked by non-gas direct fire, close assault, or non-direct fire. Not only was it destroyed, but that area has been reduced to rubble. And I'll indicate he's being destroyed by putting it there. And then I can remove these from the game because we're past them now. They've both been removed. So he went, indicated as such. See who else is in range. He's got a 4 to 2. It's there. So it's a ratio of 2 to 1, of course. 3. No effect. Okay, he's gone. He's within 4. Got a ratio of 2 to 1 again. 8. It's disrupted, so I'll flip him over. He'll fire. If he gets him again, he'll be destroyed. 10. Eliminated. So I'm just going to do all the attackers here first, and then I'll let the defenders go. He's out of range. He's out of range. Although he's going to do an extended fire. Between them, he's going to go with this small gun. Between him and the small gun is a forest, which is a 2. So he can't see over that, so he can't fire that. Same for him, he can't see over that. He'll go. He's got range of 4. Going against him. It's a 8 to 2, so 4 to 1. 6. Destroyed. Can't quite reach, he's not going to do extended. Then the defenders go. First he'll range of 4. It's a 4 to 8, but then he gets a +6, so it's a 4 to 14. Approximately a 1 to 4. No effect. So he's done, he's eliminated. He'll go. He's got a 2. He can go extended, but it would be a 1 to 10, so it's not going to work. So he's done. He's out of there. 2, he's going to go against him. So 2 to 10 or 1 to 5 ratio, which is off the chart, so he's not successful. And then Hammer Slammers are coming in here. They decided they're going to pair drop their infantry down also, and they're going to go in near the cities. First we'll see if there's any... first we'll see if they're successful in landing where they want to go. Nope. He's okay. He's okay. He missed. He's okay. He missed. He missed. He's okay. He missed. He missed. And figuring out where they go. Five is destruction. Four is destruction. So he goes off the board. In that case, we just put him on the closest hex in the board. Then we'll see where the others go as well. So several went off course, but none landed in lake, river, or swamp hexes, so they didn't get destroyed. But we'll see if any are in the range of the Calliope here. And he is, so it's a new player turn, so he can do the Calliope, and he's automatically destroyed. And I'll indicate he's fired. And now they can do their normal movement. So that's Hammer Slammers from Mayfair Games in 1984. Overall, I quite enjoyed it. It's always nice when a game is tied to an actual novel, and it's consistent with it. Very happy with the components. The box is nice. It's well done. It obviously reflects the novel. Very happy with the components, like the geomorphic board that comes in different sections. You can set up for different scenarios. It's real good quality. Components are kind of normal, but they're fine. Colors work well on the board. For some reason, I even like the dice. They're kind of like heavier dice, and it's kind of a small thing, but yeah, it's obviously got some good tactical elements to it. There's not a lot of complexity, but that's, I think, what he was shooting for, was not to be a super complex game. So if you're looking for a game of kind of moderate to low complexity and not a very sophisticated one, this would be a good one for you to try out. Yeah, so for what it's trying to do, I am very happy with it. I'm glad to have it. Probably do it again. I like that it has all the background and different scenarios. So I do like the board. It's kind of unique to have a geomorphic board like that, and the art is well done. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Thanks for your time. Hammer Slammers from Mayfair Games in 1984.